Whether you operate one forklift or thousands, one location or hundreds, the new My Toyota customer portal can help you optimize your operation and material handling equipment. This one-stop, free-to-use platform is designed to help you take control of your information and make smarter decisions, all at the touch of a button. Register and access your data today at my.toyotaforklift.com. That's my.toyotaforklift.com.
Welcome to the New Warehouse Podcast. My name is Ryan Chesterfield with Phantom Auto. Today's safety tip is Good 5S. Might sound simple, but keeping your aisles clear, reducing variables causing people to behave some way they may not behave.
With e-commerce off the charts, many small and growing warehouses are asking, how can I get ahead when my warehouse is barely keeping up? The answer is future-ready warehouse tech from Zebra Technologies. Warehouses can simplify and upgrade all processes, from automated inventory management to hands-free picking, with Zebra's tailored, scalable mobile solutions. They're simple and intuitive. There's never been a better time to upgrade for success with Zebra. How can your warehouse get ahead? The answer's in black and white. Get the answers at zebra.com/theanswer. That's zebra.com/theanswer. Fulfillment demand continues to skyrocket and outpace available labor. To keep up, warehouse operators are turning to flexible fulfillment solutions like 6 River Systems. Utilizing 6 River Systems' award-winning combination of collaborative robots, artificial intelligence, and operational expertise will make your associates and wall-to-wall fulfillment workflow more efficient. No new infrastructure, no change to warehouse layout, easy to deploy and scale, easy to train and retain associates, all at half the cost of traditional automation. Want to take your fulfillment operation to the next level? Go to www.6river.com to learn more. That's www.6river.com to learn more. How do you create warehouse superheroes? The answer is simple. With visual voice scan solutions from ProCensus. With record demand and labor shortages, warehouses need more effective workers and lightning-fast onboarding. Visual voice scan solutions from ProCensus enable warehouse workers to achieve superhero performance with up to 20% improved productivity and up to 99% accuracy. Hands-free barcode scanners from ProGlove paired with wearable mobile computers is just the beginning. Improved mobile interfaces with reduced keystrokes, easy-to-read screens, custom keyboards, voice-enabled interface, and more can be realized with ease on the leading WMS platforms. Sound too good to be true? Let us show you with our one-of-a-kind virtual demo. Visit ProCensus.com to get started today. Again, that's ProCensus.com to get started.
Starting March 28th, Modex 2022 lets you see what's coming and take advantage of it to power your supply chain with more possibilities for years to come. With 850 exhibitors and education sessions, Modex 2022 is where you'll find the more of everything. From illuminating education to next-generation technology and equipment in action to the latest equipment and system solutions for your supply chain needs. Visit modexshow.com and join us March 28th to 31st, 2022.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. On today's episode, I have 2 guests, both named Ryan. One is Ryan Clifford, Senior Director of Sales at Phantom Auto. The other is Ryan Chesterfield, who is the Manager of Sales, Engineering, and Special Projects, also at Phantom Auto. So both Ryans are going to talk to us today about Phantom Auto and their technology. And if you haven't heard about Phantom Auto, it is pretty exciting technology. I would say it's a little game-changing for our industry. It's bringing the possibility of remote work to the warehousing world in terms of forklift driving, and we're going to talk more about that and how that's possible and what that really means. So I'm very excited to learn about this and definitely hear from both Ryans here today all about Phantom Auto and how it works and what it's all about. So Ryan and Ryan, welcome to the show today. Good to have you guys on. How are you doing?
Doing great, Kevin. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, doing really well. Thanks.
Definitely happy to have you guys both on. So Phantom Auto, you guys both work for Phantom Auto. So which one of you wants to tell us exactly what is Phantom Auto and what is it that Phantom Auto does?
I can take that one.
Okay.
So Phantom Auto was originally founded to bridge the gap where autonomous, like trucks on the road, for example, might struggle. So if you got an autonomous 18-wheeler driving down the highway and they run into some kind of a situation, they get a flat tire, they hit a toll plaza, need to go out for fuel, there's a bad fog or rainstorm, all these scenarios that are common enough if you're putting enough miles on a truck, but are really still pretty challenging for robotics and sensors to deal with.
Yeah.
So the idea for Phantom was, hey, when those things come up, we can just have a central driver or maybe even a room full of remote drivers who could overtake that vehicle and manually drive it through whatever that situation was and then send it back on its way autonomously. And so that's what the company was founded to do.
Okay.
The same foundational technology we're now deploying in the warehouse. So on material handling equipment, mostly, a little bit on yard trucks, and then also on delivery robots, where say it's a forklift, for example, now we're just applying that labor where it's available. So it's not that look at the big picture of the labor challenges in material handling and in the supply chain. It's not so much that there aren't enough workers anywhere. It's that there's not enough workers in the markets where they're needed the most.
Right.
So if you look at Southern California or the Bay Area or the tri-state area in the Northeast, that's where labor is really challenged. But there's plenty of markets where the labor participation rate is actually below the national average. So we're taking that same technology that we use to do, to work on autonomous vehicles on the road, applying it where we can connect workers in the markets where they're available to work to the markets where they're really needed.
Very interesting. And it's interesting that that's the way the technology started out, is for actually trucks outside the warehouse to be able to be utilized and have that offsite support. It sounds almost like a call center, except I guess they have like a steering wheel in front of them, right? So now how does that, explain to us like the technology a little more and how it really works and how you're able to be able to have that kind of remote support like that.
Yeah, really the core technology is a communication platform. So it's ensuring that you always have high bandwidth, ultra reliable, low latency connectivity. So going back to that on-road example, if you had a room full of, virtual drivers or digital drivers, we call them, here in Austin, Texas, where I'm based, and I hit the brakes on a vehicle that's in California, it has to stop in milliseconds. Like there's no margin for error there.
Yeah.
Like you're on a cell phone call and you lose service, it just drops and you call the person back, no big deal. But in this case, the stakes are so high. And so really like the core technology for us, it's called network bonding, where we're running on multiple communication networks. So at any given time, if there's ever a blip, there's always a redundant signal or often multiple redundant signals. Okay. Pick up where the other one left off and you never experience any latency issues or bandwidth or drops. And so that's like really that's what enables this kind of technology.
Interesting. So it's really, critical communication. You bring up a great point there. Obviously, if you hit the brake, well, the brake needs to work, right? So, and it can't be, lagging or anything like that. So very interesting how it's working, and it's kind of like communication based, as you mentioned. But now talk to us a little bit about, I guess, how, Phantom Auto and, you talked about having people off site essentially that are there to be able to support, whether it's, jumping in a situation where there's a potential issue, like some of the ones you mentioned, or, it's operating a forklift. What does this look like from a physical standpoint? Does it look like, on Cruising USA or something in the arcade? What is it like?
Hey, Ryan, why don't you take that one? You actually were just driving a vehicle last week.
Okay.
Yeah. It's interesting you make that analogy. Gamification is a term that we're hearing a lot. And even some of the interests from our customers is coming from a standpoint of being able to attract a different type of labor, or maybe different demographic. These people going into the workforce are familiar with web browsers and iPads. Yeah. So something that looks and feels like a video game, isn't as intimidating or just feels different than, a dusty forklift in a warehouse. So that, I think to answer your question, it can look like, and however you would like it to look. I've seen a couple different setups.
Okay.
I've seen a setup with, a gamer chair and, a giant 50-inch TV screen with a specialized mount and keyboard. I've seen just, at Phantom, we have just desktops that have, large screens, 2 and 3 screens.
Okay.
And I've even seen, some of these new larger, curved screens that are 4 feet wide. So we're playing with different setups. There's even some theories out there whether we can do some of these material movements with gaming controllers, enabling, people with disabilities or maybe, veterans that, don't have feet or legs. If there's a way for them to operate this vehicle, given just some different hardware, this is an opportunity they don't have today with modern forklifts.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And, obviously the some of the labor restraints that Ryan Clifford mentioned earlier, I got to designate because you guys are both Ryan here. So we have no visual. So, that you mentioned earlier, having labor shortage and, having labor accessibility issues because they're somewhere else in the marketplace, but not close enough where it makes sense for them to, travel to just come operate a forklift in a warehouse, right? But the fact that you guys are also thinking about, enabling others in the workforce who, like you mentioned, maybe have disabilities or something of that nature, or, missing use of certain parts of the body is a great thing. And I think that's pretty awesome that it has that flexibility and it's not rigid in that sense as to how it needs to really be operated from a hardware standpoint. I think that's great. So, from that standpoint, if we look at the technology and, maybe some forklift operators are listening to this and they're thinking how is this possible? I never thought, my job could be remote. I thought I was forever stuck in concrete walls, moving boxes around. Right. So how does the real transition work? If you're an experienced forklift operator and then you sit down at a computer to remotely operate a forklift, is it very similar in a sense, or is there kind of a learning curve there? How does that kind of transition?
I think we're seeing there's multiple theories out there. There's a debate whether an experienced forklift driver at a console have a shorter learning curve than somebody with no experience, but maybe some computer experience. And I think we're seeing really varying results when it comes to being able to operate the vehicle, do basic movements, pick up a pallet. Like Ryan and I have done this, actually, picked that part up pretty quick. But when it comes to operating in a warehouse environment and understanding some of the other things that are happening in that environment, I think, a warehouse operator, just understanding the general processes that occur is going to be more productive. But when it comes to controlling the motor functions of that vehicle, I think the remote operators they'll give them a run for their money for sure.
Really? Very interesting. So is that because it's more precision kind of base, is more sensitive controls, or why is that, do you think?
Well, it's going to depend on the application. Some of the value adds that we have over, say, an AMR is that we can do some movements that is very, very difficult for AMRs. Right. And even if they can do it, it may not be reliable. The customer can't repeat the conditions in order for the autonomy to be reliable. So, unloading trucks, for example, just given the range of truck floors, and if the truck doesn't back in at the perfect angle, we can do some things faster than autonomy, and even from a functionality standpoint. And one thing we haven't talked about is the goal is to give the operator more information than they have today.
Okay.
And, this will come over time, but with multiple camera views, one of the things you'll notice if you ever, get a chance to try this is that your eye gets trained on where to look, because you have configurable camera views that you can put wherever you like. So for example, we have a camera view that's right underneath the forks. And I found that like I liked to have that view pretty central because that was, sort of a high impact view for me, so to speak. So combining, sort of the digital information with things like augmented reality and other sensors that we have on the vehicle that can identify obstructions or people or things like that. So the goal is to give them more information. It will be a learning curve as to what information is most valuable as we get these vehicles out there and these get really more cycles under their belt. But just given, sort of industry 4.0 and the digitalization of this, it allows us to be a lot more flexible.
And I'll add to that.
Go ahead.
There's, as we develop the product, we're trying to optimize for the strengths that we have, right? So there's obviously we have to overcome the fact that we're not there in the environment, but there also are strengths inherent in our platform that you don't have on a forklift. And so among those things are, we don't have the chassis of the forklift in our field of vision. So you're not obstructed by, the lift mechanism in front of you or all the frame of the chassis. Other things like, my previous company that I was with was acquired by Zebra. So I got to know them pretty well, and they spend, millions of dollars doing R&D on things like wearables and other components and hardware that can help pickers on a floor be more productive.
Yeah.
So for us, again, we can put a lot of that information that in front of them, in front of a computer screen, very naturally in a way that's really hard to put in front of a material equipment driver, right? Where if you were to if you put big screens on a forklift, you're just further obstructing their field of vision. Or
it doesn't work.
Pickers that are wearing heads-up displays, and they're becoming more common, but they're challenging to deploy versus just a computer screen. And when you could have a separate computer screen with a tablet that has your whole pick list on it, so you're not having to wear it around all day and things like that. So we recognize the challenges of doing the job remotely, but there's also some nice benefits that we have too.
We'll be back after a quick break.
You hear a lot about supply chains these days, because if the past couple years have taught us anything, it's that an efficient, well-managed supply chain is absolutely critical to keeping businesses successful and consumers happy. I'm Will Haywood, and I host a podcast called All Business, No Boundaries, where we talk about supply chains, how they work, what happens when they don't, and the innovations that are redefining what's possible in the world of logistics. Join me for insightful interviews with thought leaders and industry experts. We discuss how optimizing supply chains can break down the barriers that are holding businesses back. That's All Business, No Boundaries by DHL Supply Chain. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Interoperability is basically what I think you're talking about, Ryan. Because we have this information digitally, we can connect with the host systems that they have, and display that information versus like Ryan's talking about chasing devices around a warehouse, or you're losing the RF scan guns, or not putting them back in the cage, things like that.
Very interesting. Yeah. I was going to ask you guys about the visibility, actually. So it's a good thing we talked about that. But yeah, I mean, I was wondering in that sense, does the operator still have like a 360 degree field of vision? But it sounds like they actually have beyond that. I mean, in terms of, there's no obstructions, because, often you have machines and maybe the mast is in the way, or there's the post behind you and you look behind you and maybe it's a blind spot. But it sounds like the machines are outfitted pretty heavily with cameras in all different angles. Is that correct? I mean, what is a machine that has like the platform attached to it? What does it look like? I mean, does it look like a Google Maps car, kind of like with 360 camera all over?
Not quite that crazy.
Okay.
I mean, you probably wouldn't notice it too much if people weren't pointing it out to you, as opposed to the Google Maps cars where it has the big neck on top. But it does. By default, it'll have 6 cameras, and then it has an onboard computer that are running all those, as well as obstacle avoidance system. Kind of similar to like an AMR or something like that, with the LiDAR sensors that are going around the vehicle. And so then one just sort of thing that we hadn't really thought much about, but it allows you, because you have a 360 degree field of vision, and we don't necessarily, from where we are, forward or reverse is just a camera configuration. So no longer are you having to spend half the day looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
So you can have
standpoint.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. So, and then, you're putting the computer on the forklift. And now the forklift itself, I mean, is it a forklift that you guys, it's strictly for this, or can you bring this in and it's like maybe an aftermarket thing for like my existing fleet, or how does that work?
So today we're working with a limited set of OEMs, and it's not because it's not technically feasible. This is more of just a business arrangement and kind of working our way from one to the next and the next. So we're not voiding warranties and things like that as we deploy, because our kit today is an aftermarket add-on. Mm-hmm. Over time, we hope that these are going to be installed on the line, and our customers will just be able to order their vehicles, phantom ready right from the factory, the same way they would spec an ergonomic chair. But for the time being, they're installed aftermarket, and so we do have to make those arrangements on the front hand with the OEMs. Okay,
interesting. I like that phantom ready. I like that you guys have already coined the tagline. Okay,
so forklift business, because there's a whole set of requirements and specs, and pages and pages of them. Also good for our customers to make it easy for them to procure it as well.
Absolutely, definitely. And so obviously, the technology is pretty incredible. And I mean, the fact that, you're able to now shift the worker base and expand it for so many different companies. Obviously, I think, warehousing, I saw warehousing and logistics. I think I saw there's like 48,000 jobs added or something recently in the last month. So I mean, it's a huge expanding area. And like you mentioned, there's still high demand, right, for labor in these areas, and being able to tap into different markets where maybe you couldn't tap into before by having this remote technology is a huge thing. And obviously it's being recognized. You guys recently got some great funding from ArcBest and NFI. We're partners as well. So tell us a little bit about kind of that and what the plan is to really do with that funding. How does that help Phantom Auto kind of continue to grow?
Yeah, I mean, I will say this, as the guy that is responsible for bringing on new customers and our sales team, I am most excited about the vote of confidence and the signal to the market that two companies like an ArcBest and NFI would be willing to invest that kind of money, and that they see the world the same way that we do, and they believe that our solution is novel and unique. And I think, I don't want to speak for them, but just having come out of the AMR space myself, I believe that they and others in the market are seeing this as more immediately deployable and a near-term solution to a problem, where a lot of money has been spent on robotics, but often the use cases are fairly narrow. And so it's difficult, or it'll be sometime down the road before they'll be able to really solve this big labor challenge that they have. And so the companies that have been investing in us, both investors and partners and customers, are all saying, hey, we think that you can help us now. And that's why we're so interested. And so that's the one thing. And then just in terms of where the funding is going, it's largely going to hiring. As soon as you sit down and start thinking about all the possibilities for the technology, you come to find out, you're like, gosh, we're going to need a whole lot more people before we can achieve all these goals. The most near-term ones, it's the kind of two key channels for us is in terms of adding more vehicle types. So right now, our first vehicle was a center rider electric pallet jack. The second one is a stand-up counterbalance forklift. And then we're starting to add, reach and clamp and others. So that's a key focus, as well as adding more OEMs, because the extent that we can not be a one-off custom solution for our customers, where say they have a whole fleet of Raymond or Yale or Toyota, and then they have this little subset of Phantom ones. We're trying to be as seamless as we can be for our customers.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I love the fact that you pointed out that it's more immediately deployable than some of the other solutions that are out there potentially to address some of these issues, which I think is a huge thing. And, along those lines, I mean, how are you seeing it deployed already, and how is it kind of changing the marketplace in terms of labor and just their operation for companies that are already utilizing your technology?
Yeah, there's a few different ways, and some of them are things that we've been working on going back a few years. So we'd actually spent a fair bit of time in the robotics space. So we have a couple of key deployments with delivery robots that function more that way that I was describing to you with the on-road trucks, where they're autonomous, they're driving down the road, and then the remote operator is more of a fail-safe. They're monitoring the fleet, and they're able to step in as needed. And we're doing that with multiple delivery robot customers. The other is what really our focus today is in fully remote operation, right? So it's like a 1-to-1 ratio. And then as we start to layer in more functionality, then we think that we're going to be able to see a 1 human to 2 vehicle ratio and go from there. Then there's a last one, and actually I'll let Ryan speak to this, that we're working on with ArcBest, and we're enabling them. It's sort of working backwards from the way that we're working. So the way that we're working is that 1-to-1 ratio, and then adding in features that ultimately get us to multiple vehicles per operator, right? ArcBest is actually, they've developed a solution where they're working the other way. They're working on full autonomy and then finding the ways that remote operations are able to bring that to market faster. And actually, Ryan just so happens to be our key contact on that. So I can let him speak to that a little bit more.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. As you mentioned, Ryan, the goal is to have 1 to many. So 1 operator, controlling many units. And that's having them do the tasks that are either too difficult or too slow for autonomy via remote operations. And then, because we arm the vehicle with many of the same sensors and cameras and all the things that AMRs have, we basically have an AMR. We just need to write some software, to make it, do some other things. So with the addition of that, we'll solve for percentages of material movements that have never been done before, because we'll have a combination of remote operation and autonomy, and the ability to flex between facilities, between shifts. I mean, really all the in between, if you have the right information systems. Very
interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think the flexibility is definitely there. And I think that's, the future as well. Like we mentioned, the labor being in different parts of the country than maybe where it's essentially needed. But now maybe you have somebody, I guess what you're picturing, and the flexibility is, somebody maybe is in Texas, but, maybe for 3 hours during their shift, they're operating a forklift in Oregon, and then the next 3 hours they're operating a forklift in Ohio or something like that. So it definitely gives that flexibility. Now, I guess one question, about the operators themselves. So I mean, are the operators, I guess, is the plan or the model to have the operator as an employee of Phantom Auto, or they're an employee of the company that's now purchased your technology and implemented it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the company, we were originally founded and we had no intention of providing operators. We're a Silicon Valley technology company, and we really wanted to just deploy the technology. But enough of our customers have asked us, if our willingness to provide the labor as well. And so we are working on that in a number of ways. So that most of our customers that are deploying today are deploying with their own employees. And so they're either doing that centrally, or they're just creating a function at that location. So one customer in particular, they're spinning up a digital driving center in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they're deploying them in San Bernardino, where they have nationwide their own worst labor situation there, where they're surrounded by warehouses there. So that's the one model. They're always going to be that company's employees. And then we have others that are coming to us and saying, hey, can you provide us a turnkey solution? And we're doing that 2 ways. We've been also working with a handful of partners that want to provide that labor using the Phantom platform. So we're vetting those out and kind of pre-qualifying some of those partners. And then we're also building that function out internally as well. So we're trying to be able to make it as easy as possible and reduce as many barriers as we can to get to deploy the technology.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And I was thinking, because I think it would be, interesting, and I don't know what you guys have planned, but it'd be interesting, like if you guys were offering, those operators, and, if you could call up and say like, hey, I need, I got somebody, they're out sick today. Like I need an operator. Can we get one operator for the day or something like that? Or, we need somebody for a half shift, or, it's our peak season. Can we get like 10 operators for the next 4 weeks or something like that? And have them jump in between different companies, different warehouses and stuff like that. I think the possibilities, are kind of endless with that, because you create this flexibility and this remote ability as well to tap into so many different things. So it'd be interesting to see how that kind of grows for you guys, and what your plans are. So along those lines, what is really kind of the future of Phantom Auto look like from here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you touched on something really important, which is, and be it within a company. So if you're a large enough company where you have, sites across the country, across the continent, globally, where you have the flexibility to take someone that, spends half their day in one facility and then the other half in another, and you could use them in real time. If suddenly you need them, usually they only work in New Jersey and then in the afternoons they work in California, but then today you need them in Nashville. You can just use them in real time with the click of a button.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, we need to be equipped on millions of vehicles, and so that's really, our goal is that Phantom will be available on every kind of, warehouse vehicle that's needed. And that will allow the market unlimited flexibility, and it'll also virtualize all those vehicles as well. So you're able to capture all the data and operating information and business value that you can capture off of those as possible.
All right. Very interesting stuff. And certainly I think we just asked about the future of Phantom Auto, but I think the future of the industry is Phantom Auto, something like this. I mean, the remote ability, is huge. I mean, to think about that, and, I think about working as a warehouse manager myself, I didn't have the luxury of working from home during the pandemic. So being able to give those people that flexibility is a great thing, certainly. And I mean, having the flexibility for the company, I think, is huge as well, especially as we see such a huge demand grow, like we talked about. So the technology that you guys are putting out is incredible, and I really think it's a next wave kind of technology, and it's already here, and I can only wait to see it, just grow even more, and see these centers with all these people sitting at computers driving forklifts or trucks or whatever the case may be. So very interesting stuff. And you guys mentioned you're hiring, and it sounds like maybe hiring forklift operators too in the future as well. If people are interested in tapping in and getting involved with Phantom Auto, how can they go about doing something like that?
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, the best way is through our site. We're still small enough now where our executives and our leadership are still monitoring that all the time. We don't have hordes of people that we're outsourcing that off to. So if you contact us through our site, that spreads very quickly. And one thing I'll add, just in terms of, our Phantom's value proposition in our future, as opposed to a lot of the other technologies that are being deployed in the space, is that it's human centric. It's about adding as much value as we possibly can, solving this labor problem, but not doing so, at the expense of replacing every human that we possibly can. We want to make humans efficient. We want to give them a better working environment, make them more comfortable, less dangerous, less dirty, all the things they say about robotics. Yeah. But again, at the end of the day, it is human centric, and we're more deployable because it's actually really challenging to replace a human brain. We make decisions in a split second without even thinking about them that could take you decades to solve with a robot. So I just wanted to be sure to make that clear, because it's a question that we get a lot when we're talking with customers.
Right.
How does this compare to robotics and other forms of automation? And that's just a really important distinction for us.
Yeah, I think that's important to point out, because it's like you mentioned, you're not just automating the process. You still have a human kind of in there, and have that control, and like you said, and more visibility, and even I think you said earlier about being able to make certain movements and things in a way that a robot maybe could not. So very interesting stuff. And so will you guys be at MODEX coming up?
Absolutely. Okay. Come see us at MODEX. We're super excited. We're going to have most of our team there. Certainly my whole team will be there. Ryan and I will both be there. All right. And we're really excited for it. We just did our first in-person show a few weeks ago at Manifest in Las Vegas. Okay. And it was so much fun to be in person again. We were all even talking to the attendees and us, we're all just like, man, this feels so great to be in person. So yes, we will definitely be there.
Okay, awesome. And we'll be there too. So I definitely will be by to check it out. And you guys doing demos in the booth? People able to jump on and drive forklift there?
Unfortunately not. We wanted to do it so badly. Yeah. And we weren't able to pull it off this time. Hopefully by ProMat the following year we'll be able to pull it off. But we do have our best demo setup that we could possibly come up with. Yeah. Or at least to give that same type of experience.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll be waiting in line at ProMat. Next year I'll be first in line, ready to demo. So definitely interested to see you guys there and learn more about Phantom Auto. And what's the website if people want to find out more information?
PhantomAuto.com.
All right. Very easy. So, Ryan and Ryan, thank you very much for coming on the show today. I will post more information at thenewwarehouse.com so people can easily find you. So, once again, thank you again for your time today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you want more content from the New Warehouse, check out our new video series called All Hands on LinkedIn. Just search for the New Warehouse on LinkedIn and follow along.